Let's talk about one of the biggest problems you face as an organization with something to sell. So you have a product or service, a high ticket service. Maybe you're a consultant. Maybe you're a product marketer. Maybe you're a publisher of a website that has content and you sell even just a membership. You may be missing out on a massive opportunity in order to grow your site, to grow your revenue, and to overall increase the service you can deliver to customers. I'm Justin Hitt with Ad Briefing's Copywriting Tips, and we're going to talk about some of the problems you face and challenges and how to solve them, how to address the revenue issue when it comes to there being an unlimited number of competitors on the internet. Now, of course, most the people I work with, they have real businesses. They don't just simply have a website online and that's the only thing they do. They have conferences, they have consulting, they have products and services that they offer to an audience. But the problem is that with social media, with search engines, with all these platforms, you're either going to get shadow banned or be pushed into obscurity by some big giant tech company that has money to spend, and they can broadcast that money on the largest number of platforms, drive traffic to their site, and ultimately be in a position where they get the customers and you don't. Now, you have a marketing budget. You know who your customers are. Maybe you don't. That's one place you should start. Tip number one is know your customers. But can you afford to keep up with this competition when the competition expands globally? When you have a product or service that has competitors, no product is unique anymore. And can you be the one that the prospect chooses? So the key is to be able to differentiate and tell which marketing works and which marketing doesn't. So let's say you have a website. Let's say you have a professional office. How do you know who is coming into the office? And of those who will likely come into the office, which of those will become customers? These are questions you need to be able to ask. The the being unable to determine clearly where leads are coming from. Are you accepting appointments by phone and scheduling appointments? Many of the consultants I work with, they'll set up a webinar. People will attend the webinar. Of the people who attend the webinar, a certain percentage will become customers. Do you specifically know who the people are? What's the relationship between the people who become customers and the people who could have potentially come to your event? You will get people who come to events that are just there for the information. They have no intention. They don't have money to spend. They're just there to learn something, and they're going to go off and learn something at somebody else's site. But the small percentage, the 1 to 2% who are on that call ready to buy a product or service, how do we identify them early in the engagement and then help them along across the finish line to become a client or customer? We're going to talk about those things here. The last thing is if you want to scale and you know what works and what doesn't in your marketing, then you'll be able to go find those buyers in the marketplace. You'll be able to go reach those buyers more consistently and more cost effectively. Because really what this is about is how do we maximize our free net cash flow? In my other newsletters, we talk about how we can leverage that free net cash flow to generate wealth, to build up assets in your organization. And I see your marketing as an asset. However, a lot of folks don't want to deal with the technical aspects that are necessary to get the outcome. That outcome is more customers who pay, stay, and refer. So if you're a consultant with a high ticket service, if you're a publisher with a membership site, if you're a service provider that provides products and services, there's one common factor between all of these elements, and it is the lead and sales attribution. Now, what does that mean? In common terms, lead and sales attribution is where do my buyers come from? And once you know where your buyers come from, how do you find more of them? Like what specific campaigns brought them in? And what's interesting is when you have a campaign that works. So let's say you have a marketing funnel that works consistently. That marketing funnel can be used over and over again, and it's just as simple as finding a new audience or connecting with a new, another channel. Just going out there and just putting that offer in front of more people like the people who became your customers. Now, what a lot of my clients want is a money machine. Think about it like a vending machine. So whether it's their website, whether it's their business office, whether you travel and you go to events, that event itself, many of my clients want that event as a machine where they put a certain amount of money in it and then money comes out. Marketing automation, for example, you want to be able to put a certain amount of dollars behind specific campaigns that you know work, and then have a predictable amount of money come out. Because I get the question all the time, how do we know that if we do this kind of marketing or we do this kind of campaign that we're going to get our money back? It's a very important question. And the answer to that question is your lead and sales attribution. It's basically designing your marketing campaigns as a plug and play system that connects with buyers in the marketplace. Now, you're going to get a lot of people who are not buyers, and you have to be able to sift and sort those individuals out so that you can get to buyers in the marketplace who will purchase your high ticket solutions, who will buy your products and services consistently, who will become a member and commit to a monthly payment or a coaching program, for example. And then even more importantly, the individuals who are actually do something when they're there. And you can have an idea who will do something by how we interact with them from prospect to customer. And other things folks ask about is having that marketing automation run like clockwork. Now, you and I know that when one or more marketing tools communicate with each other or touch each other, things will break. So you'll have a YouTube video that's working really well, and suddenly it stops working. Has it stopped working because YouTube changed? Has it stopped working because your prospect has changed? Has it stopped working because a link is broken? There's like so many things that will go wrong. And many of my clients are in a position that they don't want to deal with the technical aspects. They don't want to know how the sausage was made. They want to be able to pull up a dashboard or a report. And this is another tip here, is that you need a single place to go and look, whether it's a dashboard, whether it's a tool, that you go and look to see what's going on so that you can make great marketing decisions. So you don't need to know that I'm looking at a prospects page today. It's a ecotourism site. It has a beautiful website that they made, and it's so pretty. It tells me everything I need to know as a prospective buyer, but the site itself doesn't tell the owners anything they need to know about who buys and who doesn't. In fact, there's no Google Analytics. There's no click tracking. There's no coded ad campaigns going to the site. Now, last month, I did a consultation for a furniture company, worldwide known furniture company, and the same problem. They have whole teams of social media experts, so-called social media experts. They have whole teams of individuals doing content marketing. But when you dig down into the site itself, and I understand you don't want to see or know about these technical aspects, but you have to know they're there so that a marketing agency doesn't pull blinders over you and basically lie about what works and what doesn't. You need to know what works and what doesn't. And so when I see this furniture company who's doing these beautiful profiles of furniture setups, giving their clients ideas, those ideas can only be solved by the furniture line. It's a great structural setup. But if I click the link and go to the site, there's no pixel tracking for the platform. So if they go from Facebook to your website, you need to know they came from Facebook. You need to know what ad they came from. You need to know that they converted. So there'd be a pixel somewhere tracking that. Um, Now, the concept that these things are there helps you do an audit to see whether or not you can tell who the customer is, what cohort they fit in. A cohort is a marketing segment, and then ultimately what products do they want to buy. If you don't have these things in place, then you can't have a marketing vending machine or a marketing system that you put dollars in and then more dollars come out. Think about it this way. The best measure of your marketing campaigns would be to know that for every dollar you put in the campaign, you get X number of dollars out, and that the number X that comes out is much bigger than what you put in. So for example, you put in $1 into marketing and you get $20 out. Now, I help clients in the areas of measuring this in a way that is meaningful and profitable, because that number, whether you put $1 in and get $10 out, it has to fit your organization. So if you have a high overhead, let's say for every dollar of sales you make, let's say for every $100 of sales you make, $32 of that is your overhead. $10 of that's going to go back into marketing. And then you go down the line, product costs and everything like that. And that's going to tell us that for every dollar you put into marketing, how much money you need to get out. Because remember, nothing happens till somebody sells something. And if that sales transaction doesn't cover the overhead of getting the customer and the overhead of delivering the product, then your profit per sale is zero. Now, you may care about the profit per sale metric, but you may not care about all the layers that are necessary to get a customer to come in. Let's talk about something other than the internet. When someone makes a phone call into your office to schedule an appointment, how much do you know about that individual so that you can make the most of that appointment and convert in that appointment because you understand the needs and desires of that individual? Well, so I was working with a lawyer client, and the lawyer has calls come in, and they come from their Facebook ads, they come from publications and events that they've done, and every campaign is coded so that someone calls in and says, "Hey, I saw your Facebook ad." And so at the phone, there's a sheet of paper where they capture these leads, and we use a sheet of paper first before we put it into a content management system. Because if the person answering the phone isn't going to fill out a sheet of paper, they aren't going to go type it into a screen somewhere. But essentially, the lawyer found out that a lot of his calls came in from Facebook, but the people from Facebook were not becoming customers. They were not hiring him and engaging him. They were scheduling appointments, but they weren't engaging him. The yellow book, which is the telephone directory, was actually generating a very small number of leads, but nearly 100% of those individuals became customers. Now, this may be different for you because I'm giving you a lawyer as a high ticket sales or consultant, where you could be in a different category, and it may be a trade journal that provides better leads. The key is that he knows, and then he trained his staff so that they filled out this little slip of paper, that they scheduled the appointment, and then he was still having more appointments than he was comfortable with. Because remember, every appointment costs you overhead, costs you time, money, and that increases the amount of money you have to get back for the campaign. And so if you're going to have a marketing system that you put $1 in and you get enough dollars out that it gives you free net cash flow, then you need to know these numbers. And so he wasn't. He was putting $1 in. He was getting $50 back, which is great, but $50 was not enough to cover his overhead, especially if he had to be on all these unqualified appointment calls. So we did two things. We had a initial consultation fee, which helped recover some of the money, but it still didn't recover it all. It at least made the leads break even. And then number two, we had a pre-call assessment. So I do the pre-call assessment for my paid consultations, and it basically is a one-page survey that the person who's going to have the appointment fills out in advance. That way, this lawyer could sit down and go through the survey so they could see what the needs were. And then when they had the paid consultation, it was more of a actual consultation. They were already a client in per se, and then ultimately they could see whether or not the lawyer was a good fit for larger cases. His case size was $20,000 or $30,000, a variety of cases. But you might be saying, well, Justin, I have $20,000 or $30,000, maybe a 50% net on that, so I can afford to absorb some of that stuff up front. It's the cost of doing business. But what if you could do the measures, or at least have a report do the measures for you, so that you would know your cost per lead, your cost per sale, your profit per sale, and then you would be able to know that across multiple segments. Now, in a consultation, I can show you how to take your profit and loss statement and turn it into some general numbers that would tell you your return on advertising revenue, and then an overall return on your marketing or your overall operations, your overall profitability, so that you can tell for every client you get what in general what's their customer lifetime value, in general what's the cost to get somebody in the door. And it's been shocking for a lot of clients. I worked with one client. It cost them $27,000 to get one client in the door. Now they made $500,000 from this client, and the margin on the $500,000 deal was about $250,000. So they could afford to invest $27,000 per customer they brought through the door. But sometimes people freak the hell out. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm spending $30,000 to get a customer. I need to be spending 10. No, $10, not $30,000, $10. And they miss the fact that if you can afford to spend $30,000 on a customer and your competitors cannot, then you essentially lock your competitors out of the marketplace. Now, there's a variety of things that we can do, but the key outcome that my clients are looking for is that They're very busy delivering the services. So that lawyer didn't want to be on those consultation calls or there's discovery calls or those appointments because they had actual legal work to do. Now, when you're just getting started, you might be just fine doing a discovery call with anybody that breathes. Doing a coaching call, doing free webinars and stuff like that. You might have plenty of time to do that because you're not making any money. But what if we could help you develop a system that for every dollar you put in, including the cost of your time to do these events, it costs your staff to do these events, that you could guarantee or at least have an extremely high probability that you're going to get back all your money plus some kind of margin to start building that business. Because the problem that a lot of folks face is scalability. They get down in the weeds and they're worried about the Google Analytics and they're checking their Facebook stats every 20 minutes and they're worried about who's liking and subscribing. They're kind of begging on the calls. Now I find it habitual sometimes on the podcast or some of these training programs that I do for clients, that I say, well, hey, make sure you like and subscribe. And that's because my client will ask me a question and I'll provide service to my client and then I'll recycle that service into a podcast or a webinar or something that I use on my lead generation side. So think about it this way. And this is an example of how my marketing system works, is that I get paid by my clients to do something. And because it takes me a long time to turn that into something other than just giving a video to a client, that I am now getting additional value from the presentation in my marketing. And so that starts building this automation so that pretty much all the work that you're doing is supporting all the growth that you want. And so if you want that marketing automation to work, and when it breaks, it just gets fixed, then you need to have someone that helps you with your campaign management. This could be an internal person or it could be an external person. But if we don't have this, what we often do is start throwing more spaghetti against the wall. We start throwing out more social media posts and we believe the hype that the content platforms are telling you to publish more. So the networks say content marketing is king, and the more content you create, the more likely you are to get customers. But that's not true. That's the more content you create, the more content they have to sell advertising. So the more money they make. So they're okay with this white lie to tell you that you'll get customers because you might get a few more customers. But what if we dialed in your marketing system so that you knew which channels generate customers? That example I gave you earlier, got a lot of appointments from Facebook, but those people didn't become customers. In the event where you're getting a lot of appointments, well, we change structure. So let's say you're getting a lot of appointments, in this case of the lawyer, and we didn't talk about this specifically, but he'll see this video. Let's say you're getting a lot of appointments. Your book is filled up with appointments. Well, possible solutions for that includes hiring someone to screen your calls. So it's an appointment with a screener or with a junior lawyer, or start doing webinars and events so that we're extracting key buyers. I found out a long time ago that I didn't want to be on appointments with people who didn't give me money. And just like I don't record these calls unless somebody's giving me money to record it. And that's because I have enough work stream to stay consistent, to have a few private clients, to have the lifestyle that I'm looking for. And if you're looking for that too, then pay close attention here. But that's why I do what's called one-to-many. And I'm learning how to do it better because I don't do a good job at one-to-many selling. But I'd much rather have folks come onto a free newsletter and to get information that they're looking for and to get their questions answered without me having to be on a telephone call or without me having I used to have to fly out to client sites. And I don't mind flying out to a client in Phoenix or California or New York to do work because they're paying me to be there. They're covering all my expenses, but I'm not going to fly out someplace to have a meeting with a prospective client who has never invested in anything, has no skin in the game, who hasn't decided to do business. Now, how do I know who will and who won't? Well, again, that's what I'm saying that many of my private clients want and that we help them solve for, and that's the lead and sales attribution across all marketing channels, both online and offline, and then knowing how to measure without having to be in the sausage making. So without getting into the sausage making, is kind of an obstacle people have. Now you can, if you want to, drill down and look at reports and do analysis, but we need to structure that. But we also have that concern about the free net cash flow. So one thing that I will help you do that other folks won't talk about is that we measure from the accounting system. Because when you go to the bank, they don't really care how many subscribers you have. They don't care how many likes you have. They might recognize you because you have a popular YouTube channel or you've got a popular podcast. But when you go to fill out the deposit slip and put money in the bank, because again, we're looking for larger bank accounts that allows us to reach more people, solve more problems, to reward you for the dedication and benefit that you've put into that marketplace. But you have to deposit money in the bank. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it's going to either be cryptocurrency or it's going to be actual dollars or it's going to be foreign currency. But the bank is expecting for you to deposit dollars. So let's wrap up with a few quick tips. First off, you need to know where the customers are coming from and the customer's perspective. Who is the customer? Where do they come from? What were they doing on that platform? What do they want when they came to your website? Uh, kind of can you cookie them so that we can get demographics and other details about the individual? You don't need to necessarily know how that's done and all the nuances of that, but you need to know it's done, how it happens and the results that you get, because a lot of marketing agencies, like I've mentioned in a previous podcast, a lot of marketing agencies will rip you off. They will just tell you, oh, you've got these new customers, and if you spend more money, you'll get more customers. Well, are those customers even worth having? Because sometimes you can spend more money with fewer people and get better customers. Sometimes you can spend less money and get better customers. Sometimes you can spend more money and get even better customers if you are able to target. Next tip is you want to be targeting. We want to know exactly who your customer is. So the marketing automation and system must function the right way. However, it also has to function in a way to get the right people. So, because again, it's people who make decisions. So if your customer is a knowledge worker or an affluent family or a lawyer or a professional worker, you have to reach them where they are. And when they're on Facebook and when they're on Twitter, they're not thinking about the business. They're distracted. When they're out playing golf or something, they're not thinking about the business. They're playing golf. We need to find them where they are. And it may not be LinkedIn. It may not be YouTube. It may not be Rumble or Getter or all these other platforms. But we have to know that. And when you know that, you can then have that money machine going where that marketing system adapts to focus on the right audience, the right customers. Because Lord knows that Google and Yahoo and all these ad networks and Facebook are constantly telling you that they can help you reach your customers. Well, I want evidence. So as a decision maker who's deciding where to apply capital to generate cash flow, because that's really what you're doing when you're marketing. Where does the cash flow come from? It comes from specific customers predisposed to purchase from you. That's why we talk about building your credibility, becoming a recognized expert, building up mailing lists. To make these things happen, you must have a system in place that you can put dollars in and get dollars out. You have to have somebody who's going to work with you to look at the analytics. And this might not be your CPA, but they're going to look at your marketing reports against your financial reports in order to determine, are you actually making any money? It is entirely possible, and a lot of people don't believe me on this, but they go broke anyway, is that you could spend all the money you have to get customers that aren't worth having. In my Profitable Customer series, we've talked about that as well. So let me just real quick before I wrap up, share with you what I do and how I help customers create and keep profitable customers. So I help you focus on customer profitability. That's number one. A lot of people think getting the customer is number one, but if you get customers who aren't profitable, then how can you make them profitable? It's a lot easier just to get profitable customers. Next, what we do is the accountability, which is your reporting. How do we know what works and what doesn't? How do we know what product lines? How do we know what the initial product is that gets the second sale? Because the first sale could have been an accident. The second sale is what starts building your customer lifetime value. How do we manage metrics? Number 3, dashboards is a good way of doing it. Could be a report that someone on your team produces, because the reports, number 4, help you with auditing your channels. Have you ever hired a marketing agency, but you weren't quite sure that they're actually doing something useful? Yeah, they gave you marketing materials, but how do you know these materials work? Well, that's again part of that accountability. And so it could be an audit. It could be actually designing the system so that you can audit it easily. But then number five, the last part is making sure the marketing automation actually works. Now I always giggle a little bit there because again, it's really hard to have that internet vending machine or that office vending machine where each of your marketing channels is paying for itself consistently, profitably, and bringing you customers worth having. I'll tell you right now, the customers on the internet are different than the customers you might have in person. You maybe have an office in the city and you do events. The people that are in events are different than the people that are online. We can measure that, and we can help you measure it without being down in the minutia. So if you like to talk specifically about automating your marketing systems and making them more accountable to the dollars you put in, you'll know how much money is going to come out. And then stop doing the things that don't work and start being able to double down on the things that do work. Then you're going to want to visit me at www.adbriefings.co.uk. On that website, there might even be a link below. Just go to the contact page and ask about marketing campaign management or marketing campaign audits, because that's the key thing. Just like I was talking earlier about this ecotourism site, it's a high dollar site. If you stay here, it's hundreds of dollars a night to stay at this place. They're missing out on customers because they don't know who even comes to their website. Now, of course, the platform they're on may have tools, but are those tools accurate? Are those tools even set up? Do they know whether somebody comes from a social media channel versus a telephone call? These types of things is part of your integrated marketing system that makes the concept of marketing, that marketing department, generate enough money to pay for everything else in the business. Again, nothing happens till someone sells something. How do you know who's going to buy? How do you know the sale price is even right? These are factors that we work on. Now, my typical client has $1 million plus business. They tend to be $10 million to $100 million, and they have a large number of transactions, 1,000 or so transactions a day. Because when we have these types of numbers, I can go do machine learning, math and other things to give you these numbers and to build these formulas out for you. And then all you got to do is pull up the dashboard or pull up the report and make a decision. But you can't make good decisions if you don't have accurate information. So again, that's why we audit and other things. If you'd like me to teach your team how to do this, and teams don't like to be taught how to do this. Your teams do not want to be accountable for these types of factors because they like to do what's fun. This website that I'm looking at over here is beautiful. They want it to be beautiful. But what if your customer doesn't want beautiful and they just want a solution to the problems that they face? And if you could reach them with less, and you could reach them more effectively, and you could reach them in a marketing channel that gives you that vending machine like approach where you put your money in and something comes out, even automate it in a way that you don't have to be physically involved with it. Like I mentioned about the lawyer, how they can put cub lawyers on for the pre-screening and then only elevate the calls that need the main lawyer, or to do webinars or events where they can exit the event with a paid consultation or a paid service that only that lawyer can provide, that locks out other competitors in the marketplace because it's building your mailing lists. Well, you're in the right place if you want those things. I'm Justin Hitt with Ad Briefings Copywriting Tips, and I hope this introduction to really understanding how difficult it can be to generate profitable customers, yet how automated it can be when you have the right people in place, when you have the right systems talking to each other, and you are able to keep those systems up and running. Again, as always, if you have questions, you can visit me at www.adbriefings.co.uk. Go to the contact page and ask your questions. We're always interested in those questions. And then the questions is how we do this. Questions from private clients get priority, and they'll usually get a nice video so they can see my face and I can answer it more in detail. But we do custom training for many of our clients that you may or may not ever see in the public sphere. But these things are about consistency. These things are about removing the sausage making from the executive decision so you have more energy to put into the decision, and then ultimately having accurate information so that those decisions deliver that dollars in, that dollars out. We are here. Again, I'm Justin Hitt from Ad Briefings Copywriting Tips. We're here to help you transform business relationships into profits guaranteed. The way we guarantee it is because we create systems, we create automation, we create plug and play so that your business leaders can just do the work. You're already delivering these services. Why should we make it harder for you to get the customers? So again, thanks for being a part of what we've got here. I appreciate your questions, and I'll see you in the next podcast. I'm Justin Hitt with Ad Briefing's Copywriting Tips.